These two Seattle Mariners need to have bounce-back seasons in 2024, but who are they? Find out more in today's video. So the first player that I'm going to mention in today's video may not come as a surprise to any of you, but the second one might be a little shocking. But either way, these two players really do need to have bounce-back seasons for the Seattle Mariners in order for us to get over that hump and really get into the playoffs this coming season. So let's start off with a really non-shocking player I'm going to mention in this video, and that is first baseman Ty France. As we all know, Ty France really did have a down year last year, especially in terms of his 2022 production, and he truly hasn't had a great half since his first half in 2022, where we all know he made the All-Star game that year. But I kind of want to put into perspective a little bit about how Ty France really didn't struggle in the first half last season, but just like prior to 2022, he did have a really bad second half. So in the first half, when Ty France made the All-Star game back in 2022, he hit .308 with 49 RBIs and 11 home runs, as well as 18 doubles. But then towards the second half of that 2022 season, he only hit .229 with 34 RBIs and 9 home runs, and only put up 9 doubles as well. So as you can see, Ty France really went from an absolutely dominant first half in 2022 and really fell off in the back end of 2022. But one thing that's kind of getting overlooked is how Ty France really didn't have a bad first half last season. Obviously, he didn't have that all-star caliber first half, but he really did not have a bad first half. In 2023, he hit .261 with 36 RBIs, 7 home runs, and 22 doubles in the first half of last season. But again, in the second half of 2023, he only hit .236 with 14 less RBIs, 12 less doubles, and 2 less home runs than he did in the first half. Which, in my personal opinion, we really don't need Ty France to be an all-star. We truly just need him to be league average, and if not a little bit above it, because we know he can be above league average at many points, especially the past 2 seasons he's shown that. But then again, that second half, he really just falls off, and I feel like he kind of gets a bad reputation for that. So truly, if Ty France can just return to hitting .270, with 20 to 25 home runs, and maybe anywhere from 70 to 85 RBIs, that would literally be perfect, and I really wouldn't expect anything else from him. And truly, his production does get overlooked a little bit. We really do need him to be successful this season, because the better he is, the better we are as a team. And nowhere am I saying he's our best hitter, but I do think he's a very good hitter at the MLB level, and he really just needs to be consistent for an entire season. So that's player number one that really needs to have a bounce back year for the Seattle Mariners, and I'm sure that does not come as a surprise to any of you, and we've talked about it for a while now, that Ty France just needs to come back. And obviously, going to Driveline with JP, we've seen what Driveline has done for JP, so hopefully in the 2024 season, it can do the same for Ty France. Now let's talk about the guy that a lot of people probably aren't thinking of that needs to have a back bounce season in 2024, and that would be the Seattle Mariners ace, Luis Castillo. And I know what you're thinking, Luis Castillo did not have a bad year last year, and I agree with that, but in terms of what he did in 2022 and years prior, he really did have a down year for his standards. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, obviously there is little things that you can't really tell the difference in, and he honestly improved in certain categories in 2023. But if you look at things like breaking run value, he really had a fall off compared to the 2022 season. Now we're going to look a little bit deeper into this so you guys get a better understanding of why I'm saying that Luis Castillo needs to return to his dominant form and really just stand out as our ace. So let's start with Luis Castillo's pitch type from 2022 to 2023 in terms of how hard he's throwing certain pitches. If we start with the four-seam fastball, in 2022 he threw it at 97.1 miles per hour on average. Last season he was down 0.8 miles per hour, down to 96.3. With his slider, he was at 86.5 in 2022, down 0.8 again to 85.7 miles per hour. His sinker was down a full mile per hour from 96.9 in 2022 to 95.9 in 2023, and his changeup pretty much stayed the same and only dropped 0.1, so not a huge difference there. And obviously pitch speed is going to vary year to year, and obviously he's getting older, he's not extremely young, but you have to look at a little bit deeper to see really why this change really happened for Luis Castillo in 2023. So right now we're going to look at batting average in terms of these specific pitches. So this is essentially how many times Luis Castillo has thrown this pitch and how well hitters do against it. So in 2022, hitters hit 152 against Luis's fastball, and in 2023, they hit 165, so a .013 jump there. In terms of his sinker, in 2022, they hit 277 off of it, and in 2023, they hit 239, so he actually did improve in terms of his sinker, which is good. But here's also where things get a little bit of dicey when you get to the changeup and the slider. So against the slider in 2022, batters hit 183, and in 2023, they hit 234, so that's a huge jump in terms of batting average. And with the changeup in 2022, batters hit 239, and in 2023, they hit 280. So that's a .041 jump, which is a huge difference. One thing I do want to point out, though, is Luis Castillo did throw 47 more innings last year compared to 2022, so that may play a little bit of factor, but also these batting averages have just jumped drastically. So it is kind of a huge difference no matter the innings pitched. But there's also one more statistic that I really want to talk about in terms of Luis Castillo's production in terms of last year. But there is one specific stat that I really want to talk about in terms of Luis Castillo's production, and that's home runs per 9. In 2022, he had a .78 home runs per 9, which is fantastic. But last year in 2023, he had a 1.28 home runs per 9, which is, again, a huge jump. So in terms of how many home runs he actually gave up, in 2022, he only gave up 13 home runs, but last season he gave up 28. So 15 more home runs in the 2023 season. But there's one specific pitch that he gave up a lot more home runs this season than he did in any season prior, and that is his four-seam fastball. In 2022, he only gave up 1 home run on his four-seam, but last year he gave up 13. And truly, I think that's just something we could see in the game. When he'd throw the fastball, he'd leave it up in the zone, and you could just see hitters were more on top of it this season. But one thing I kind of want to talk about in terms of all these numbers is I'm not saying Luis Castillo is a bad pitcher by any means. I think he's the 3rd favorite to win the AL Cy Young Award this year, so he's definitely going to come out and shove this season. But in terms of little things like home runs given up, he really needs to get back to his old form and just kind of become dominant again. And not saying he had a bad year last year, but in terms of certain things like home runs given up, those are definitely certain categories he struggled in. And as you've seen across Mariners Twitter, maybe that people are considering George Kirby to possibly be our ace this year. But in my opinion, we really need Luis Castillo to solidify himself as an ace, and hopefully George Kirby can follow right in his footsteps. But as we know, Luis Castillo will probably be our #1 starter on opening day, and he very well deserves it. He is a fantastic pitcher. But we do really need him to get back to that old form of just absolutely coming out and dominating, and we can go out and trust that he's going to go out and be an absolute dog that we know he can be. And just one more little tidbit in terms of how many home runs and how guys were really getting underneath his pitches this season. His ground ball percentage was down 8% last year, so obviously guys are being able to get under his pitches more because he's leaving them up in the zone. So again, just little things like that he can really improve on in the 2024 season and really help the Mariners stand out and be a playoff team. So let me know if you guys agree with any of these points about Ty France and Luis Castillo needing bounce-back seasons in 2024. But otherwise, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.